Roll Tide, everybody. Big win for Alabama. It's time for Sunday rollback. Got the catfish on board and you as well. So thank you for being here. Let's talk a little bit of Alabama football after a 42-13 win in Baton Rouge in a place known as Death Valley. All right, there he is, the catfish himself, Mr. Chad Anderson. I'm Mick Gillispie. Chad, I want to remind you that if you want to pimp out your new home with some Daniel Moores, use that promo code Bama Tailgate. You get 20% off. The classics. They won't make a Daniel Moore of that win in Baton Rouge, but I'll tell you what, I loved it, man. I loved it. I didn't want him to score at the end, but even the fact that we were blitzing him on every play, okay, you got that, but
you could see, could you read Brian Kelly's lips? He was like, are they bringing 8? And it was like, well, yeah, you've got Garrett Nussmeier in the game. It's 42-6 and under a minute. So yeah, we're bringing 8. Yeah. And I loved it, man. Just, even though they scored, it was a hell of a throw and a catch, but I mean, don't let that distract. That was amazing.
Yeah. I'm doing the post-game show on Cover Crimson. I already had the 42-6 up because I went on with like 2 minutes left in the game, just to get a jump on everything. And then I had to switch it. And I'm sure people were probably like, oh, he can't count. Well, it was, the game was still going. Yeah. But I loved it, man. I loved it. I love the way that we played. We did all the things I said we needed to do. Not that I'm an expert on football, but I thought that we needed to be more disciplined, and we were. I thought Milroe needed to run, and he did. Thought Alabama had to be better on third down, and they were. So they must have seen the same things that we saw. And changing those 3 elements makes them a championship team to me.
Yeah. I mean, we talked about it on the Tailgate show with Jake, and the biggest thing that we wanted to do was establish some momentum early, show physicality, and then also take the crowd out of the game. And you could see it, and ESPN, Kirk and Chris, rightfully so, they were harping on it. That very first drive of the game, first play was 5-yard false start penalty. And it just kind of blew everything up. And then Milroe takes a snap, rolls right, hits Ryan Williams on, what was that, second down, I believe. Yeah. And from there, it was just, everything was in sync. So to go penalty, run for basically no gain, to really busted assignment by the offensive line because he had 2 guys in his face. After that, Bama never looked back, man. And they were sustaining drives. Even that third drive, missed Ryan Williams, who was wide open deep, just a touch too far. Had Henderson, who was a step behind the defense, ended up having to punt. And I really think that right there on defense was the biggest stand of the game, because Alabama had built that momentum. It was 14-6. The crowd was kind of out of it. And the defense, to be able to hold them there and keep the crowd out of it, it was just 2 completely different teams. Like, that was the Georgia team that we saw last night. So if that team shows up 3 more times, Alabama's going to be in the playoff, and Alabama's going to be a force in the playoff.
LSU definitely had their share of injuries. I mean, I can't not say that they did. I mean, their injury report was pretty long, and it included Harold Perkins, who's maybe their best defender. John Emery's a good running back. Their best offensive lineman. They had like 4 offensive linemen on there, and a bunch of guys on defense. So that's that's the course of the beat. That's basically the nature of the beast. It's just how it goes. But you still got to take advantage of it. I felt like Alabama finally ran the ball, and they scored it early enough where before the rains really came down, they had a comfortable lead. And then all of a sudden, when it turned into a running match, they dominated. They really did everything well in the game, and I'm glad for them.
Yeah, and it wasn't just the running game in the sense of hand it off and between tackles and all that stuff. It was running game, motion, but it was getting the backs involved in the passing game out of the backfield. How many times did we see Jam Miller catch pass last night to convert a third down or to get a big chunk play.
Yeah.
And K-Law got in and mixed it up a little bit. It was kind of crazy because it was one of those games where Alabama puts up 42 points. They dominate the game. The offense was clicking, but it wasn't like just Ryan Williams. You know, if you go back to the Georgia game, that's what everybody remembers. And really, Williams and Bernard didn't have a whole lot to do with last night. They had a few plays, but especially Williams. But overall, man, it was the Milroe show. And I don't care what anyone says. Hurt, not hurt, I don't know. But that was not the same Milroe that we saw for the last 4 games. I don't care what.
I've been saying it, and then everybody's talked me out of saying that he's hurt. You know, I mean, like, hey, he's not hurt. He's not hurt. Okay, well, where the hell's that been?
Right? Yeah.
Well, I mean,
you could just tell like he wasn't gun shy.
Right, and that's that. We didn't see that against South Carolina. We didn't see that against Tennessee.
No,
he was running with purpose last night.
If you go back, I don't have the stat in front of me. I actually wish I did. Maybe I'll go look it up. I want to know the number of designed quarterback runs that were called last night compared to the previous 4 games. Like, take the Georgia game, take the Wisconsin game, because he did it a lot there, and then take last night's game. Look at the average, how many designed QB runs, whether it was a power, a lead draw, whatever it was, and then look at those 4 sandwich games of October with Vandy, South Carolina, Tennessee, and Missouri. I would bet you dollars to dimes that there is a big discrepancy in the number of truly designed play calls for the quarterback to run between those 7 games.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. And I thought the game plan was great. To go on the road and get that win is important. I mean, now Alabama's alive for the for the college football playoff. But what about the SEC championship? Now all of a sudden it's Bama and Texas for the SEC championship game.
Well, so this poses a really interesting question. It's not Bama, Texas yet. The power indexes and the analytics are assuming Tennessee loses to Georgia.
Right. Yeah.
And if that happens, then you've got Bama, Texas, because they're also assuming Texas beats Texas A&M at the end of the year. They're assuming those 2 things happen. And when the analytics say, oh, it's going to be Bama, Texas, it's because they're forecasting and projecting what's going to happen in future games over the next 3 weeks. And based on odds and percentages and stuff, that's how it kind of shapes up and shakes out. Mick, this is an interesting question and thought that I brought up last year remember when Bama was stuck at 8 and we were doing the Tuesday shows?
Yeah.
And every week they were at 8 and we're like, how the hell are they going to get to 4?
Yeah.
Nobody loses, right?
Yeah.
Now, if you're Bama, you're probably going to be the highest 2-loss team on Tuesday night. So you were on last Tuesday, so I don't know why you wouldn't be this Tuesday. I don't see Ole Miss jumping Alabama. But if you go back and look now, okay, Bama, do you even want to play for the SEC title? Because the advantage, if you went out and play and some things happen, you go play Texas, right? The advantage is you get a first-round bye.
Mm-hmm.
The disadvantage is you lose as a 3-loss team. Do you even make the playoff at that point?
Yeah, right. Do you get eliminated because you played in that game?
Right. You're penalized for playing in that game. While every other team is also 6-2 in the SEC, you get penalized because of that. And I'll just tell you, I would rather take my chances and be the 5, 6, or 7 seed, host a first-round game, win out, host a first-round game, and then if you're the 6th seed, you go play the ACC champion somewhere.
Right.
I would rather host as a 6, play the 11, go play Miami or SMU somewhere, and then take that path to the semis versus having to play Texas in the SEC. You lose, you're out. You win, you get a bye, but I would rather take the path. That sounds crazy, right? Can you imagine people going, I don't really want to play for the SEC title this year. It does me no good.
Right. And the problem is, for the SEC is that game's irrelevant now.
Yeah. Well, for all conferences. right? Well, not for all, because I guess some places that's how you get in. But for the Big Ten and the SEC, it's irrelevant.
Yeah, and so I agree with you, man. I mean, like that's just kind of what we're looking at. Like the days of that game being meaningful are over. And for the conferences that they don't want to let go of the money, but for the sake of the teams that want to win a national championship and make the playoff, they're going to have to figure out something there.
So let me propose this to you: is just what if they did this in the future? And I don't know if they will, but if it happens this year, I hope Bama's not the sacrificial lamb on this. But let's say that happened. Bama plays Texas. Bama loses. Let's say they lose by 10, third loss, and they fall out of the top 12 because they played Texas. So let's say that happens. The Birmingham and the SEC will go nuts, right? Alabama will go nuts because they're going to say this is insane that we're getting penalized for this. So my, I don't know, thought or way to change this, I guess, is could we base the playoffs on week 0 through week 13?
Right.
And just say, look, we're not going to penalize anyone. If somebody loses that game, obviously there's a loser. Whoever loses that game, we're not going to factor that in. We're just going to go back to what is their resume before that game and play it from there. That's right. The only way I could think of it as being fair. That way it keeps the meaning of the championship, but it also doesn't penalize someone.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm with you. I think that's if I was the conferences, I'd just eliminate that game and move on from it, but
yeah,
like the old school, like whoever, like Texas would probably win the conference this year without a game. But when you win the SEC championship, Bama's won it a lot. They won it last year. It is significant, man. I mean, it matters.
It matters. It definitely matters. But I would just say, I don't see any reason. It is diminished though. Like it matters and it's a pride thing, but it doesn't have the same, whatever prestige, I guess, as it did in years past. It just doesn't. And so I would be fine with actually going back old school. Like we just talked about, like, hey, the 70s and the 80s and the 60s, like, hey, you got 8 teams or 10 teams or whatever. Best record wins. If you tied, if 2 teams tie, they're co-champs. And the one who beat the other can sit there on message boards and brag about, well, they're the true champ because they won head to head, but whatever. But the problem is it makes too much money.
Yeah.
It makes way too much money. So they got to figure it out because I don't think it's going away because of the money.
No, it's not. But it is kind of, like you said. We talk about Milroe and throwing the ball to Jam Miller, big thing in that game. Defense was awesome. They were blitzing a lot. They put pressure on Garrett Nussmeier the entire game. Deontay Lawson had one of the best interceptions you'll ever see, man. And in the end zone on top of it,
Man, that was so clutch.
It's your day. Yeah. That was clutch. Q Robinson left the game with an arm injury. We're not sure what the status of him's going to be. I feel like if Bama wins out, they're going to make the college football playoff. I just do. Yeah. I'm comfortable with that. But they've got to handle success on top of it. And that's something that, Saban was a master of. And I don't know, I just don't feel like that's been an area where we've really seen them succeed under Milroe. And I'm a big Milroe guy, but now it's time to forget about this one and move on to the next one and just keep succeeding. Because I think the guy's got a ton of talent. You know that. I really do.
Does. Yeah, he does. Bama's now, everybody was like, okay, this is it. You get by LSU, you're in the driver's seat. And they are now. But this team hasn't shown consistency, Mick. And that's the problem. That's the scary part is we've now seen them look this way against Wisconsin, Georgia, and LSU. We've seen them look a completely different way against Vandy, South Carolina, and Tennessee. So luckily, Mercer, no offense to the Bears, not too worried about them on Saturday, but sneaky games like just going to Oklahoma and then, of course, hosting Auburn, it's like those games are the 2 games that do bite you. And I know that sounds crazy after what we saw last night, but let's be honest as objective fans. If you step back and look, you go, winning at Oklahoma and then playing in a rivalry game, they're not going to be cupcakes. I don't care how bad Auburn is. Auburn was bad last year, and it took 4th and 31. So that's the only thing, is that we got to see consistency and make sure you don't puke all over yourself going down the stretch here, man, because it's easy to do after you get successful.
What do you think about LSU? Where do they go from here?
LSU, man, this goes back to they're kind of in the Auburn situation, but they're winning at a higher level. And what I mean by that is Auburn fired Gus Malzahn. Auburn would love to have Gus Malzahn probably right about now. Maybe not, because he's not performing at Central Florida. But if you look back, Gus was a great thing for them. They didn't upgrade by getting rid of Gus. All they did was go further in debt by getting rid of Gus. So Hugh Freeze is obviously struggling. Same thing with LSU. You go from Les Miles, you go to Ed Orgeron. It's not working out. And I know Ed won a national title, but let's be honest. Ed fell, like Jim Harbaugh said, he started that season. He was born on third base to begin that season.
Yeah, right.
Okay. They won because of just simple talent on that team. But now you look at, they hire Brian Kelly. I thought it was a great hire based on what they could get and what was available. I really did think it was a very good hire. But now you're sitting here and LSU has, kind of taken steps backwards from his first year. Remember, Brian Kelly went to the SEC championship in year 1.
Yeah.
Beat Alabama, went to the SEC title, and got smoked by Georgia. Last year, they were on a path to success, ran into Alabama. This year, they start off slow against USC, run into Alabama. So LSU just, they got to figure some things out. And I don't know if you're wanting to blame it all on injuries. Kelly was out coached last night. They get talent. They have the prestige of the program, but it's just something feels off. I like Brian Kelly as a head coach, but I think he's an awkward fit at LSU. And I don't know that they, I don't know. They got to figure out consistency too. And that's kind of the name of the game, because they have very, very high expectations there. And, so far, things aren't working out. And it's not because, like Penn State, for example, James Franklin wins games he should, and then he loses the big game. But he's probably going to make the playoffs this year.
Right.
Brian Kelly plays with you in big games, but then he loses a game like to USC.
Yeah.
And that's the problem there. So they got to figure some stuff out. Consistency, maybe identity. And to be fair, they also lost the Heisman Trophy winner from last year. So,
the injuries, the injuries,
yeah.
It up. I mean, I'm not making excuses for them, but boy, when you're without, Harold Perkins and John Emery and your best offensive lineman, a guy that started like every game for you, it's hard to replace all of those players.
Yeah, it is. Injuries is it, but it's also part of it.
Yeah.
And you got to figure out how to overcome. But yeah, I mean, key players missing. Let me ask you this, and I'm not arguing your injury thing. That's a real.
No, I'm just saying, I'm throwing it in there.
Yeah, sure. And it is. Injuries weren't the difference last night, though. So if I'm a fan, I'm kind of looking at that going 42-6, 42-13. That's more than one or two key pieces being out of the game.
Right.
So it's a little deeper than that, but obviously it contributes.
Yep. So now for Alabama, they take on Mercer. Mercer's 9-1 this year. It's not like they've obviously lost to Samford. So, I mean, but at the same time, after losing to Vanderbilt, I mean, I think that this is an opportunity to come out and take care of business.
Yeah. I mean, this is a game. If you're Alabama, you're digging back into the vault and going, look at Georgia Southern and look at the Citadel. The Citadel, they were, I think, down 3 or up 3 at halftime in 2018. Georgia Southern is the famous 10 horn comment from Nick Saban. He revived it. Yeah, he brought it back yesterday. So these games are go out run your base formations, execute, do things the right way, still play with intensity, don't get hurt, don't get called for targeting in the second half, and move on. Again, no offense to Mercer, but that's how Alabama should treat this one. Just consistent. Hey, don't let off the gas, but we don't have to throw gadget plays or new wrinkles or show anything new. We just run the base plays, do it right, execute it right, get your win, stay healthy, and move on to Oklahoma.
Yeah, right. And yeah, stay healthy is a big one.
Yeah.
So where do you think this win stacks up for Kalen DeBoer? What's it mean for him?
Well, I think that this is what I said Friday. I mean, it's a big win for Alabama, who stay alive in the playoffs, and you're still alive in the SEC and so forth. But I think it's such a big win for Alabama, or for Kalen, because you're in a situation where everybody said this guy's Nick Saban 2.0 after the Georgia game. Like the way they did it. Now, there were some people chirping about the way the second half went, and rightfully so. But everybody was like, man, this guy was ready. He can coach. He's our guy. Look at what we have. And we just beat Georgia, the unconquerable Georgia. We just beat them with a first-year head coach. But then the month of October happened. And Mick, it got to the point, I never got the full story, but I heard that on Hey Coach that they didn't allow phone calls after the Tennessee loss. Like
yeah,
just Pee-wee.
Yeah,
it was just him. I actually thought that was a terrible look.
Yeah.
Because if he can't lose that game and then take the calls, then that's not a good thing. People commenting about the T-shirts and the attire and the intensity and the defense, and we want to see you yelling on the sidelines. We want to do all this stuff. That was starting to, kind of like a volcano. Smoke started going up in the air a little bit in October. So I think for him to be able to do that and say, everybody needs to chill the F out. Because I know how to coach.
Love to tell him that. You would love to tell him.
I would. He's like, look, I know how to coach. Maybe Jalen was hurt and we didn't know it. Maybe he was. DeBoer kind of alluded to that a little bit too. Remember when he said after the Tennessee game,
yeah, you
guys have no idea what these guys are going through and what they're playing through to try to win football games. So I just think it was big for him and the psyche, because yes, he beat Georgia, but when you lose to Tennessee, and then if you had lost to LSU, and then you have Auburn on deck here late in the season, it starts to become a pressure cooker fast. So now it's just more about consistency and identity.
Yep. So now Alabama down the stretch run. Oklahoma, they're a team that could change their whole season with a win over Alabama. Yep. And then Auburn, a team that is, they're all they care about there is beating Alabama. So these are two really intense games, but they're very winnable games for Alabama moving forward. You got one more kind of, light game, and then after that, you got two, and then you sit back and wait and look around and kind of see where things are. But Alabama all of a sudden is now one of the hottest brands in college football. The coaches poll just came out, and Bama moves up again 2 spots. So that means they've moved up 5 spots in the coaches poll in the last 2 weeks. So that, just by the way, Chad, telling you about it: Oregon, Ohio State, Texas, Tennessee, number 4, Penn State 5, Indiana 6, Notre Dame 7, BYU, who had an incredible comeback win last night, 8, Bama 9, Georgia 10, Ole Miss 11. So that's significant, because you got to be up there to get into that college football playoff.
So you do. This is what pisses me off, though, about these polls and these rankings and how they look at certain things, okay? I actually don't have a problem with Georgia being ahead of Ole Miss, because even though Ole Miss beat them head-to-head, I still go back and look and say Georgia has some really good wins, especially Texas on the road. To me, it's the Ole Miss loss that is what's holding Ole Miss behind Georgia, and I'm okay with that, because Ole Miss lost to god-awful Kentucky at home, okay? So that one is just really, really bad for me. Here's my problem with some of these others. is I don't really know what you do with Indiana. Like if I was BYU, one, by the way, did you see the Utah athletic director last night?
No, what happened?
He was pissed. Well, it was 21-19, under 2 minutes in the game, 4th and 10 from their own like 5 or 10 yard line. BYU gets sacked. There's a flag in the secondary they call holding on
I
Utah.
saw that. It seemed kind of fishy.
A little bit. And so he was pissed. I mean, he did a press conference, said he was going to talk to the commissioner and the whole deal. So here's the thing with BYU, though. They actually have some good wins. Like they beat SMU on the road. They beat Kansas State. They've done a good job. But if you go back to Indiana, Mick, I don't know if you want to try click on their schedule because I just want to show something here. And you guys got to remember,
I know it's light.
I live in a house. My wife went to Indiana, so I'm well aware of Indiana's season right now. Okay. She's magically a football fan all of a sudden.
Yeah.
So look at the schedule here. Okay. FIU, Western Illinois. Now I get it. At UCLA is a conference game. You can't control it. Charlotte, Maryland, Northwestern, Nebraska, Washington, Michigan State, Michigan. All right. So Mick, that's 10-0, right? Here's my problem with Indiana's ranking is that out of their 10-0, do you know how many of those 10 teams right there in front of you have received a single vote in the AP poll?
Yeah, none of them.
0. Not are any of them ranked. I'm talking, guys, none of them even get a vote. Mm-hmm. They're not in a single writer's top 25 across the entire nation. So they're going to play Ohio State in 2 weeks. And that'll kind of tell the tale of are they legit or not. So that's my biggest problem is everybody's always talking about these undefeated teams. Mick, County High would be 5-5 with this schedule.
So back like Chigginbotham was there. They'll be like Miami when they lose Ohio State this week. They'll drop 8 spots. You know, Georgia dropped 8 spots. Like they'll be big fallers.
Indiana is going, if they actually get in and get through, and let's say they got a first round matchup at Georgia. Mm-hmm. Okay. Let's say they lose to Ohio State. Georgia works their way back up, and it's like a 7-10 game or a 6-11 game. Georgia will TCU them. Okay. Like that's to me, like what it would look like with Indiana. And that's where strength of schedule and things like that matter. And I get honestly tired of the rhetoric of, well, they're undefeated. They have to be up there. They sure don't. If that was the case, why is Army not in the top 10?
What's your wife going to say when she hears your comments about
She won't watch.
She won't watch. Okay. Because
no. I'll tell her the show was only 20 minutes.
Yeah. I don't want you to get in trouble. You know, when Brittany's like, you're talking smack about Indiana. The sad part is that it would be great, maybe not for you, but it would be great for us if they were the team that Bama played in the first round.
I know. I thought about that.
And then if we played them in basketball, where we're better than them in their own game now, it's just pretty crazy.
2 weeks ago when Indiana was 13 and Alabama was 15 in the AP poll, you would have thought that they were closing down the town up here. I mean, all I heard about was the AP poll. And so I reminded her about basketball because Alabama's number 2, but she didn't want any part of that.
I do love that. All right, a couple things before we get off here. I want to tell everyone that we're brought to you by Pearl River Resort over in Philadelphia, Mississippi, and the Timeout Sports Lounge over there. So if you go to Golden Moon Casino, it's Vegas-style sports book right there in Philadelphia, Mississippi. It's a short drive from Tuscaloosa and really anywhere, but it's a great place. Silver Star, Golden Moon have slots and table games. You got Dancing Rabbit Golf Course, and if you spend $50 at the sports book, you can play Dancing Rabbit for just $40. It's the Augusta you can play. Now, the second thing I want to say is this, as I pull that off of there, is that you guys may have seen it, or maybe you haven't seen it yet, but there's a brand new show on the channel. Oh, and there it is, Courtside with Catfish. And so sometimes it'll be both of us. Hi, let's talk basketball. Sometimes it'll just be the cat himself. But there's your backdrop. You guys got to watch it. Bama's number 2. Chad was, when we were in college, well, I was actually gone by then. but he was on the college radio station WVUA when Bama went to the Elite Eight. And up until last year, that was their best ever run. He was broadcasting all the games. So you got to go through everything. You've been a huge basketball fan. So easy fit for you. And you love being courtside.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. We had our first one drop yesterday after the win over Arkansas State. We'll have another one drop on Tuesday morning after Bama hopefully beats McNeese State. And then, of course, the huge road matchup at Purdue coming up on Friday nights. We'll recap that one for you as well. But, yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that really with Nate Oates, and we should have probably been doing this, but now that we've gotten our legs underneath us and things are going so well and the viewers and the listeners and everybody have been so supportive, this is an easy fit and addition to the channel. So looking forward to chatting some basketball. It's a team that has very lofty expectations and they've got the talent to back it up. So looking forward to that all season.
What do you think about the team, man? Mark Sears coming back, Grant Nelson. It seems like they were a little bit injury prone coming into the start, but they have so much depth right now. They got pushed a little bit by Arkansas State, but took care of business. Is there anything to worry about with these guys?
I think for me, it's just going to be the expectations and then putting the chemistry together, but that's going to come from obviously the players who transferred in. So you got Clifford, you got Aiden Holloway, you got Philon, you got, of course, Sears, Reitzel, and Nelson, who are all back. Diabante, Stevenson, you got all those guys. And so the key pieces that have been added, Alabama is now so deep. This team, they can rotate so many different players in at various positions. And the length that they have, which I was talking about a lot last year, you really only had Nick Pringle, and they really missed Bediako. And so now you've got big guys galore who can protect the rim. So I just think it's going to be expectations because everybody after an unexpected Final Four last year, Mick, they were good, but we didn't expect that because lack of defense. They made a great run, got to the Final Four. So now you go, wow, we've added to this team. They're even better. Well, now the expectation is a Final Four. And so let's just see how they can do with that because it's one thing to surprise teams like you did last year. It's another thing to, have the label and be projected as the number 1 seed or the number 2 seed in every single bracket projection and then follow through and get there. So it's going to be a fun ride.
Yeah. I don't think it's Final Four. I think it's national championship.
Well, it is. Yeah, for sure.
Let's win this, baby. Let's win it all. Nate Oates is talking about that. Him and I bonded at the mullet toss.
Maybe I saw that.
Yeah.
I saw that.
Maybe we could throw that in on one of your shows after a big victory.
That'd be great.
He's a great guy though. I really like him and Kalen DeBoer just as people running the programs. But yeah, I'm looking forward to a lot of the catfish court sides. I can't wait to get on with you sometimes, but guys, it's Chad's show. So just get ready for a lot of hoops with Chad as we kind of go through this season. The other thing with this guy is that he's busy. He's very busy. He's not only doing sports, but he's also doing mortgages. And he may be catfish to us, but when I bought this house, he was my mortgage guy, and I couldn't have done it without him. I didn't know that. I'll be honest. I didn't know that I would ever own my own house, but I got the exact house I wanted. There was one point where I came to Chad and I said, "Hey, to get into the school district I'm in, we're gonna have to up this up a little bit." And you remember that it was an uncomfortable conversation, but we had it, and then we upped it up, got into the right place, and hit the mortgage, the interest rates at the right time, and it turned out to be great. The studio part of it, so very, very happy with my house. But I mean this from the bottom of my heart. I couldn't have done it without this guy right here. And some of the people on our channel have used you as well. But you're doing your own thing now, and that's exciting, man. I mean, just like kind of us doing our own thing here at the the Bama Tailgate channel.
Yeah, I mean, I just love the flexibility and the ability to handle things, on my own. And that's not a knock against other companies or anybody else out there. I just enjoy that I'm able to do it and control it. And like you said, do my own thing, just like we're doing our own thing with this channel. It's a fun thing. So I'm always working, guys. I can't tell you or stress that enough. I know it's cliche, but even before Mick and I did this today, was helping a couple of people early this morning on a Sunday morning, trying to get them set up for a house and buy a home. So people are still buying. Sellers are bending a little bit. So if you've been on the fence, it's really a good time to start considering rates. We've been helping people with cash out and consolidating credit card debt. $1.3 trillion of credit card debt in the United States. If that's you, we have ways to get rid of it. So I know some of you, a lot of you may have really low interest rates right now, but we still want to try to figure out a way to get rid of those 25 and 30% credit cards that may be hanging over your head. So that's my website, chadwickanderson.com. That is, I stress this every time I do this, but so many times there are phone numbers and emails on the internet that go to like a bot or go to a team member or something. I'm telling you guys, if you text or call that number or email that email address, that's coming directly to me. I'm the one responding. I'm the one talking. I'm the one helping. And those are my social media channels and handles. So anyway, I hope I can help you. If you'd like to chat, feel free to reach out and we'll do the best job we can.
All right, guys, roll tide, everybody. And we will talk to you again tomorrow as we cover this, this red hot Alabama football team. I love to say it. Feeling good. 24 hours. I still got a little bit more time before we start focusing on Mercer. But like and subscribe, thumbs up as you hang out. I know it's a lot to ask Auburn fans, LSU fans. I don't want to ask you guys anything right now, but hit the bell so you know when we're dropping new content. And thank you guys. And again, brought to you by Pearl River Resort. We appreciate them a lot.
To Pearl River Resort.